In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a notification system like the one I made in Towercraft. So in Towercraft, for example, every time you kill an enemy, you get a notification of the item you get on the left, see? And each notification gets pushed down to make room for the new one. So I'm gonna teach you how to make it. I'm going to split this into two parts. The first part, I'm going to kind of go over a real life example, so the one I made in Towercraft, and just like walk through it. And then the second part, I'm going to basically make it from scratch and explain what the heck's going on for like everything I add. So the one in Towercraft, which is this, it's basically an item that spawns in, and everyone that spawns in pushes the next one down. So how are they spawning in? Before that, I assume if you're spawning in notifications, it's going to display different things, right? So the notification is going to store, and for mine at least, it stores an ID. So that's important to note when we go over this. So in the enemy, I have an emitter, and this emitter spawns the notification. What's important is that we're also transmitting a notification ID. It doesn't matter how you make it. I mean, it depends on your use case, but for me, I'm literally just taking a random, it's set here. I'm generating a random number between 1 and 30, and I am transmitting it through here as I emit the notification. All right, so that's how we're emitting it. And it emits every time the enemy dies. In the notification, first, let's go through here. We're receiving the ID, and we're saving it. Right here in this variable. It's a local, it's a local variable. Using this ID, I spawn in the item in your inventory. You don't need that though. I set a counter that changes the playhead of this timeline. And I have every item name, you see right here. I have every item name in this timeline. I also have the descriptions, but you don't need these. Actually, this would save a lot of thermo. I should delete these. Yeah, so we're using the ID to display the name that the notification should have. And that's the most important part, right? But then there's the animation part of it. So we are teleporting this to the where are we teleporting this? We're not using a head tracker, but you should. You should. I'm personally just using a tag. It's right here. So I have a custom camera rig for this game, and I am teleporting the notifications right here. So like I can move this and they'll teleport somewhere else, right? But this is specifically the middle left of my screen. So the notification spawns in and immediately teleports to that position. But if you noticed, they kind of animate in from the left, and then when they go away, they animate to the left from the right. That's a little confusing, but let me just show you. So we have a despawn animation. Obviously, let's go through the spawn animation first. We have a spawn animation, and this is really important. All right, I'm not animating this teleporter. I'm animating the actual displayers. All right, so this is really important because I also animate the teleporter for something else. I animate the teleporter to move down when a new notification comes in. And then this is the important part. UI new item. All right. This pulses on. And then let's pretend we have multiple notifications. All right. This one just spawns in. UI new item tag pulses on. This zone senses UI new item anywhere but here, so not here. All right. So for example, this one will count up UI new item because this tag in the newest notification went off, and it counts this counter up, and it animates the teleport position. So here's the teleporter position. When this counter goes up, okay, now I'll be able to show you. So if we count this counter up, see how the teleport position moves? The teleport gizmo goes up, which will make the notification appear to move down. And this is how it works. Every new notification all of the other notifications will move down 1 tick. This is hard-coded, so it's not gonna like move down infinitely, but I mean, I can't think of a situation where you need it to move down infinitely. Now let's look at the despawn animation. So there's 2 situations where you're going to want the notification to despawn. The first is timing out. So I just have it at 10 seconds. It's just gonna sit on the screen, and after 10 seconds, the despawn animation plays, which, I mean, you probably guessed it, but it moves it back to the left and then destroys. Alternatively, when this counter is full, I also destroy it because, again, I only animated it to go down 10. All right, so as the enemies die, we'll get notifications. And as we get more notifications, the previous ones will get bumped down. And if we get 10, you'll see, yeah, see how they start fading out and then they disappear. All right. So now I'm going to build it from scratch. That's very, very, very clean. All right. Look at that. Look at that. Let's get started. So I'm going to place a cube. Let's get a head tracker just right off the bat. So I'm going to build this in a way where you can just put it in any level and it'll just work. So let's get a head tracker, and in this head tracker, we're going to put a microchip. So I'm going to scope into the head tracker, place a microchip, scope out. So it is in the scope, or it's in the same group rather. And we can just put this, it doesn't really matter. Align it to the grid, we'll put it here. So in this head tracker, we also want to put the notification. So I'm gonna scope this cube into the head tracker as well. Because it actually doesn't matter? I'm not sure if it matters. It kind of matters. So because we're doing it this way, we don't actually have to teleport this. It'll just move with it. You'll see. Anyway, in this chip, we want a way to emit our notification. So we're gonna place an emitter. I'm gonna set everything to like all the way to the left, make it emit once. I'm going to link our cube. All right. Let's get a controller sensor. So in this demo, I'm going to be able to manually trigger the notifications. Obviously, you probably won't be doing that, but I'll make it trigger on X. All right. Let's scale this cube down a little bit. It's quite big. Even though the cube's going to be invisible, I'm going to scale it down. All right. Let's relink the emitter so the scale applies. And I mean, this needs to be remote controllable. All right, let's try it. So we're spawning cubes and they stick to the camera. Perfect. That's a good start. That's a good start. Let's make them stick to the top middle. This is completely arbitrary, but that's what I want to do. A little bit higher. A little bit too high. That should be perfect. Perfect. All right. Perfect for now, that is. All right, so we are successfully spawning our cube. Let's build out the ID system first. So we want a wireless receiver. Depending on your situation, you might want to just put the random generation in the notification, but I'm going to assume you don't want to do that. If you do want to do that, I mean, it's even easier. But so we want to put a chip on this cube, obviously. And in this cube, we're going to receive. We want to use a zone to transmit this data. Well, it doesn't really matter. You know what? Let's do this. So in general, you want to use as little zones as possible, right? Because in-scene zone. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm glad I mentioned that. This isn't going to be an in-scene zone. It's going to be a scene-wide zone. So never mind. All right. We're going to receive. We can just call it notification ID, or maybe set notification ID. Naming is important so you can understand your logic later. And we're going to set this to set notification ID. Again, make sure it's scene wide. And in this example, I'm just going to do a random randomizer. We can do 0 to 10. It's important. Transmitting the number 0 is really, really bad in Dreams because you can't. So I'm actually going to offset this randomizer by 1. Okay. And then every time we spawn in, we randomize. It's important to note, spawning takes a frame. So the randomization is going to occur before the item spawns. That's so, like, whatever number it is, when you press X, it'll change, then spawn in. It's just important to note that. All right, so we have, I mean, this is it for spawning. This is literally it. We're randomizing our ID, and we're spawning a notification. Now for the fun part. So for the notification, first we want to get the ID and store it on the little notification block. So how do we do that? I mean, obviously we're already receiving this ID, right? But how do we save it? We are going to use a local variable. So we're going to place a variable and a variable modifier. What do I mean by local variable? Normally, variables are global. So if I have a variable called you know what? It can just be called ID. If we have a variable called ID, and then we're setting that variable ID, and then we place this somewhere else, this variable modifier will set this one and this one. All right. We only want it to set this variable in this object. So a better example, if we have multiple of these, currently this variable modifier will set the variable in every one of these objects. What we want is we only want it to set the variable in its own object. And to do that, we need to make it the scope here. We need to set the scope to here. So we're setting ID to whatever this is. And the scope is here. Now this only works if the chip this is in a group, and currently it's not. So there's multiple reasons we're going to do what we're about to do, but the main one is so that this scoping works. And we're actually going to unsnap this chip, delete the wire, move it back, and then group the chip with the object. So now the object and the chip are in a group, and this scope will actually work now. The scoping will actually work. I don't know. I believe I have to relink the emitter. Yes, I have to relink the emitter. No, that's not what I want to do. I got to scope in there. Because again, I mean, the object changed, right? Okay, great. So this notification cube is now a group. This variable modifier will only modify this variable inside its own object. Okay. Is this all we need? So we receive the ID and then it sets. Let's do continuous. And the reason we're going to do continuous is because once this receives an ID, I want to destroy this logic, because we don't want to like keep setting it, right? Once it gets a value, we don't need this logic anymore. We don't want it to run anymore. So once this ID variable has a value, it'll destroy this chip. Now, the reason we can put a destroyer in this and it won't destroy the whole thing is because this chip is not connected. What I call it floating. It's a floating chip. It's not a snapped chip. All right. So this destroyer will only destroy this microchip. In fact, if we didn't link it, this destroyer would destroy nothing except itself. But because we're making the affected objects this microchip, it will only destroy this microchip and not the whole thing. And just to prove that, notice how nothing happens. All right. Oh, I'm wrong. Actually, I'm wrong. If we didn't link this, it wouldn't even destroy itself. But the moment we snap it, it destroys the whole thing. So we are successfully spawning in this cube, and it's saving the number. Let's just test it really quick. I'm looking for a number displayer, and we're gonna make it in scene. Now this is going to be hard to read, so because they're gonna overlap each other, but if I just do this, it should be fine. So if I press X, okay. The number's off screen. All right, let's move the number down. All right, X, we got 6, and then a different number. All right, so it's working. Now, how do we make it move out of the way? That's the next step. Let's make this look a little nicer because this is what we're actually going to use. Yeah, so let's make it look kind of like a notification. I understand that. Oh, actually, we'll display the number for now, but I will make it display like actual words because that's a better demo. But this is good. This is good for now. We want to add a spawn in animation. All I want to do is start this up. And then we will do a blank keyframe to make it go to where it's supposed to go. So it's there and to there. So that's my spawn in animation. This should be powered on, and it should be on play once. So when this object spawns in, this is gonna play. Now, we probably don't want to play it until it gets the ID, right? So we're gonna do that. We only play it once this thing has an ID. Okay, now for the most important part. We need to make it move down every time a new one spawns in. So I'm actually going to put this in a chip instead because we're gonna have multiple things in this. And this is gonna play once. We're going to get a tag, and this tag is going to be called, I don't know, new notification. All right. And we are going to pulse this. That is important. That's very important. It's worth noting that this system isn't going to work if you spawn 2 notifications on the exact same frame. So make sure that does not happen. And I mean, so what you can do to, I mean, it's not going to happen with this system, but maybe you have a system that spawns 2 notifications at the same time. So in my example in Towercraft, maybe you kill 2 enemies at the same time. Make sure you use an exclusive gate so that doesn't happen, right? Okay, but anyway, new notification will be pulsed on once this spawns in, and we are going to sense that with a trigger zone. So new notification and scene wide. It's very important that it doesn't sense itself. Okay, so anywhere but here, not here, needs to be the scope. Let's count a counter up. And the target will represent how many notifications we want to fit on screen. Let's do 5 for this example. We're going to want a timeline. And we're going to put the count progress into the timeline playhead. The count progress turns this counter's current count into a value from 0 to 1. So for example, if the target was 4 and the count was 2, the value would be 0.5. The reason we're doing this is because the playhead takes in a value of 0 to 1. All right, cool. So target value 5. I like putting the timeline into beat and then making go all the way down with L1 and then left D-pad. This is because each frame or beat or whatever is labeled like 1, 2, 3, 4, so I can actually count it. We want to stop it at 5, I think. I'm never sure, but it's easy to test. And then we're going to put 2 keyframes, one at 0 and 1 at 5. Okay, let's just test this. It's not going to work because we need to power it on. Oh my gosh. Okay. And all I'm testing is for the playhead to line perfectly up with the frames, and they do, and it does. So that's good. Test passed. Okay, let's turn it back off. So this timeline is going to be moving down the notification, but we're not going to animate it yet, and there's a reason. So we're just going to leave this as is for now. Okay, let's do the despawn animation now. So for the despawn, we're just going to grab this timeline, and remember that this, it made it go, it animates it down. We want to do a different animation though. So this should be a blank keyframe, this one, yeah. Let's just fade it out. Let's just do a fade out. Let's unkeyframe it completely. And so this is a blank keyframe now. We're gonna start it. It should start faded in. Is this a blank keyframe? Oh no, okay. So this keyframe will fade it in, and then this one will fade it out. Okay. All right. So I mean that's the despawn animation. Pretty simple. You can do whatever you want, by the way. And when do we play this? We play this when this counter is full, or after 10 seconds, or however you want. So maybe after 3 seconds. Okay, so that's when we despawn. All right, now we're going to take this ID and turn it into something relatively meaningful. All right. We are going to grab another timeline, and we're actually going to put this timeline inside this group, okay? This is going to be a little weird, but there's a reason. We're going to put it inside this group. We're also going to take this number displayer, which is the back. We're using this as the background, and we're going to put it outside like this, okay? Okay, so we're inside this group. Let's group these together. This is really important, guys, so pay attention to this. We're inside the notifications group, and we're going to group these two things together, okay? So again, this is the background, and I'm just going to do that. This is the background. Okay. And then this is going to be where we keep the name, like the text of the notification. Let's, I believe this is keyframed in here. Probably should have done this first. Let's just unkeyframe this for a second, all right? And we want this, we want this background to be, let's start it here, okay? Because I don't want it to be overlapping this stuff. Now let's reanimate this. So again, it starts up, and then it goes down and fades in. Okay, perfect. In this timeline, we're gonna do a very similar thing to this timeline. So, oops. So we're gonna turn it into beats, and how many frames depends on how many different notifications you're going to have. I'm gonna do 10 for now. Okay, so we're going to now take this ID and turn it into text that means something. All right, so we're going to take the ID, put it in the target count, make it 0 to 10, and take the count progress and put it into the playhead. Let's turn this whole thing on and just test it really quick. So we're making sure the frames line up and with the playhead, and they do. That's good. Really quick, let me just show you what it looks like when it doesn't work. So see how the playhead doesn't match up? That means you did it wrong. So there you go. Okay, and we want to put a text displayer in every single frame except 0, okay? So keep in mind, we're never going to have an ID of 0. All right, so 1 is here, and I'm just gonna make it a little bit smaller. You don't have to, but ID 1 test. I don't know what to name them, so it doesn't matter. All right, we're gonna make them in scene. We're gonna take out the background and everything, so it's just text, and we're gonna try to line it up with our backgrounds. I'm just gonna do this for a second. That's perfect. So And this is also important. We're going to make the text always on top, so it's in front of our background. Okay. And I'm just going to really quickly copy and paste this 9 more times or 10 more times or whatever. Okay, so we have some text for every single ID. So for example, ID 1 matches with ID 1 test. ID 2 matches with ID 2 test, etc. Because we're not teleporting, I do have to do this a little bit differently, but I believe this will work. So we're not going to animate this. We could have, but what we're going to do is actually, we're going to animate the entire text gadget, all right? So let's scope all the way in, and I'm just going to drag this up. I'm going to make the grid a little bigger and drag it up like that. And we're also going to do that with the timeline, okay? So so remember we made this a group. I was inside this group, and I animated both of them up. And remember, this was the spawn animation, so they animate down like that, okay? Oh, and then it fades in as well. Let's animate the fade in as well. So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to fade them out, and then I'm going to fade them in like that. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to go back into this timeline and animate them down. So remember, they go down 5. And remember, this is its own group. I'm gonna move the group. I'm not gonna go in the group. I'm gonna animate this group. Okay. So we start here, and then nope, we don't want to animate that anymore. We start here, and now we're going to just move this down like about there. Okay. So is this gonna work? No, we have to power it on. So as new notifications come in, the current notifications are gonna get bumped down. And finally, the spawn out animation. Remember, we just faded it out. So it starts faded in, and then it fades out like that. All right. This should be it. This should be all we need. I hope. I mean, let's try it. Let's try it. So X spawns in a notification. It's a little big. Okay, so it's not working. That's fine. That's fine. Did I make these always on top? I did. It looks like they're not, the text isn't displaying though. It's possible this isn't keep change. Yeah, this needs to be keep changes. This, the fade in needs to be keep changes. That's still, it's working. It is working. Look at this. But the text, okay, I mean, let's start with the obvious. It's a little big, so I'm gonna scale it down 50% again, and then re-emit. Let's make sure it's centered. I mean, this is, I don't know why I didn't center this. Let's make the spawning animation quicker. So I like to use a timer output into the playhead, and now I can directly control how long this animation is. Let's make it 0.5 and make sure this is sustain. This doesn't need to be keep changes anymore, but it's fine. So let's try playing. Okay, the text isn't spawning in. I'm not entirely sure why. So for some reason, I was only animating the first one to fade in, but I needed to animate all of them, which I swear to God I was, but I guess I wasn't. So let's try now. And there you go. That's fantastic. A little bit of a bug, which is kind of funny. I don't actually destroy this. So I forgot to add the destroyer. You might have caught that. So at the end of the destroy animation, we want to destroy. Go figure. And make sure to link it to the entire thing. So scope in once. There we go. So it's linked to the entire group. Now let's try. So after 5, it should destroy. I think it's very, very slow. So let's increase the speed of it a little bit. Once again, I'm going to play it with a timer. So let's make it like 0.3. So put the timer output into the playhead, make sure it's sustain, and we're going to play the timer like that. All right. Alternatively, we can just put the destroyer at the end. That's it's a little bit cleaner. And let's try it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th one. Okay, there you go. Nice, very nice. It fades out a little bit wonky. Let's change it to this, maybe. That's a lot cleaner. That's a lot cleaner. All right. Like and subscribe. All right. What else? So the last thing, the very last thing is I'm not liking where this is emitting. So let's emit it a little bit higher so it comes from off camera. It's close. It's very close. A little bit higher. That might be too much though. There we go. All right. So this is our notification system. I mean, obviously this cube should not be visible, but or collidable. There's a little bit of weirdness when it first spawns in. Okay, I was able to fix it by moving the play animation outside of this. So what was happening was when it first spawns in, this keyframe is not on because this chip is not on. But by moving this animation outside of this chip, which triggers the new notification thing, it works, right? So let me refresh. So there's no more flash. All right. Let's do another thing. So notice how they like snap down, which kind of looks a little bit bad, to be honest. So what we can do is actually take this, nope, not this one. Take this timeline, which is the thing moving it down, and we can actually, we can smooth it, right? We can make it smoother. And to do that, we're going to pass the count progress through a signal manipulator. And we're going to just make the output smoothing like 0.2, 0.2. And that's already looking so much better. I'm going to try to match it up with the spawn in animation. That's very, very, very clean. All right. Look at that. Look at that. I love it. And at that, I think I'm going to call the video here. So I really hope this helps, guys. What I just built, I will release as an element, and so you can use it. And the link is in the description. It's a head tracker. You can just put this into your game and it will work. It'll stick to the camera. Let's say you don't want it to stick to the camera. You literally just take this out. All right. So now it's insane. I mean, it really is that simple. Guys, if this helped you in any way, let me know in the comments. Let me know by liking, subscribing, you know, all that good stuff. If you have any tutorial requests, I would also love to hear them. Doesn't mean I'll make them, but it just gives, it's really nice for me to know what you guys want, right? Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.